Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news, and, well, Two Blokes Chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
You're on the Two Blokes Chatting with Neil A. Butler and Robert B. Cameron, and we have got Katrina on the phone. Hello, Katrina.
Hi guys, how are you?
Doing well, thank you. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Katrina and I go back a long, long way. What, 11:30 yesterday morning, wasn't it?
Not even a week.
Like that.
I host a podcast called the Regional Leadership Podcast. We talk about regional leadership, not surprisingly, and regional leadership is something that Katrina has been working through this year as part of a program, but we got chatting about her story and thought, you know what? This is a person we want to chat to in our series of interesting people who live in regional towns around Victoria. So,
And formerly New South Wales.
indeed.
Chuck that in. Yeah.
So,
Chuck that in.
you're a Mildurian now, but formerly Broken Hill. Tell us your story.
Yeah, so born and raised in Broken Hill, and as most people do from Broken Hill, when they hit the age where they can get out, I got out. But I turned into a homing pigeon, and I went to Bathurst for a bit, then to Wagga, and then ended up back home where I settled down and got married and started a family. And yeah, then back in 2011 decided we wanted to create a few more opportunities for our children that we had, our young children, and we made the move to beautiful Mildura on the river. Mildura on the Murray.
Where today, of course, it's a cool breeze sweeping in off the ocean, and it's currently how hot?
Hang on, let me have a look at the weather. We're all bunkered down inside it's currently 38 degrees, and it's only 10:45 in the morning.
Yeah, you're heading for 43 or 4, aren't you, Katrina?
Yeah, 43, 45 degrees today. So,
Yeah.
But being from Broken Hill, I'm used to the heat.
Yeah, this is luxury.
It's funny you say, as most young girls aim to get out of Broken Hill at a certain age. My story with my two stepdaughters is the exact opposite. Fiona went to work at the Broken Hill Hospital as a psychologist in her early to mid-20s when you were looking to get out, and then her little sister followed her, and that was a long time ago, and they're still there, and they do love it up there. But when you go to visit, it's one of those places, it's a lovely place to visit, but my goodness, it's very nice to be driving away from it as well. You can you can have enough of Broken Hill, can't you?
You can, but I think the key, we used to say the key to living in Broken Hill, because you are quite isolated, is to get out regularly, to get out and see other parts of Australia, and it just refreshes you and brings you back, and you're ready for Broken Hill because it's beautifully unique, and the people are beautifully unique, and that's the big thing that draws me back, is I still have many family and friends, and that just is always the pull back, because they're just so.
I guess one of those places you love to go to come back is to Silverton, of course.
Yeah, look, I prefer the Monday plains.
Is that
for the view.
Now? I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to put it to you. Is there any more beautiful sight in Australia that you've seen than sunset on the Mundi Plains?
Yeah, that's my favourite thing to do, and the smell of rain as rain's coming in. That's the one thing I miss. It's a very unique smell that you have in Broken Hill when it's about to rain. It's that mix of dust and wet, and it's very. When I smell it, very sentimental.
There's actually a word for that. Someone the other day said, how good is the, whatever it is, it starts with P, I can't remember what it is, and it's the smell of approaching rain. It actually has a term.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I would have thought Broken Hill would have gone on the back foot a little bit with the tourist film called Wake in Fright.
Yes.
That probably didn't help the tourism of the program.
Well, that was back in the 70s, wasn't it? 70s or early 80s?
Yeah, but they then did a remake about 10 years ago with David Wenham in it.
Oh, yes.
And I didn't see the original because obviously I'm not that old, but it was, I don't know that I'm rushing off to Broken Hill based on that particular documentary, let me put it that way.
Go back and think about Mad Max and Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
Yeah, they're better ones.
Yeah, and Mad Max, of course, was filmed in Geelong, so I live there, so that's okay.
So, Katrina, just quickly before we leave Broken Hill, when I first went there, I was amazed at the depths of the gutters in the town for a place that's known for its hotness and dryness. And I was still shaking my head, but recently my stepdaughter sent me a photo of those aforementioned gutters after they'd had a bit of rain, and they're hardly deep enough.
I know, yeah, it's the saying, it rains, it pours in Broken Hill. It's not just a little bit, it's a flood.
Amazing.
Gushes, and so those big, deep gutters after a night out are a little bit hard to manage, but they come in handy when we do actually get rain out that way.
Now, move the story forward a little bit, and you and I know this story, Rob doesn't, so we'll get you to tell as much of it as you feel inclined to tell us. But your life got turned upside down a year or two ago, and subsequent to that, there's obviously been some adjustments needed in your world.
Yeah, so my gorgeous husband sadly and unexpectedly passed away on Australia Day in 2019 of a heart attack, which, as you said, completely turned my world upside down. We have two boys, they were 12 and 9 at the time. So I've been adjusting to, I really don't like the term new normal, but it really is what it is. So I kind of had my COVID experience in 2019. So when COVID hit, having your world turn upside down because of COVID, it was kind of like, add it to the list.
Yeah. Hold my beer.
Yeah, that kind of thing. That is a life-changing moment for sure. I never thought I'd be a widow at 39.
And I think the thing that came out of our conversation yesterday, and why I was keen to get you to talk to us today, you know, people have heart attacks regularly, and people who are listening to this, not the same person obviously, but you know, there are lots of people who have heart attacks, and people who live in metropolitan Melbourne, major centres like Geelong and Ballarat generally have facilities around them that enable them to have at least a fair chance to survive through that. But this is where, living where you do, 6.5 hours drive from Melbourne, 4.5 hours drive from Adelaide, things are not as the vast majority of the population expect it to be, I guess.
No. So in Scott's case, he had some signs that something wasn't right with his cardiovascular health, and he had undergone a lot of investigating, and it kind of was ruled, they thought, it's not his heart. You know, he's 42, he ran marathons, he ran the Melbourne Marathon twice, and Scott come from a sporting background himself. He was an exercise physiologist by trade. He did a human movement and exercise science degree. So he knew that it wasn't that he was unfit, it was, you know, something wrong. When he exercised, he would get this pain in his chest. So even after all those tests that hadn't gone away, he was kind of in the middle of going down the next path, and to go forward a bit after Scott passed away, to try and make sense of how this human could just drop dead, I reached out to the Heart Foundation, and they explained to me that having an angiogram, obviously the coronary heart health wasn't investigated as thoroughly as it could have been, and the angiogram is located in Melbourne, so 600 k's away, and Scott wasn't offered that test. And then I found out that there isn't even an angiogram service in Mildura, which made me then think about, we have quite a high, there's a lot of social issues, low socioeconomic backgrounds here in Mildura, and access to travel to Melbourne, and if you don't have private health, you can't get an appointment straight away, so you go on a wait list for 6 to 8 months. So even if you can get to Melbourne, you've still got to wait to have this test that can tell you either you've got to be on medication for the rest of your life, or we need to get you in and you need to get a stent put in and open up your arteries so the blood can flow and keep you alive, or have major open heart surgery. So I believe that where you live, your postcode shouldn't determine your access to health. So we found that there's so Albury Wodonga has this service, and they're a cross-border community like we are, but the unique nature of Mildura is that we're on the New South Wales and South Australian border, and I feel that that's a great opportunity for us to not just service the residents of Mildura, but people like those in Broken Hill, those in the Riverland in South Australia, which is an hour away, and then extending out through the northern Mallee part, or the Mallee, I should say, so heading towards Melbourne, that sort of circles Mildura. It's much easier, more affordable to get through Mildura to access a life-saving preventative test such as an angiogram.
And I guess the other thing is too, even in best case scenario, you've got private health insurance, you can afford to get to Melbourne, you're able to get an appointment, all those things, even if the best case, in your situation with two younger kids, sort of the uprooting of the family for a week to go to Melbourne, or someone going down to Melbourne by themselves at a time when there's a little bit of stress involved, it's even the logistics of it make it difficult.
You nailed it. That's it. It becomes, it can be a real manageable thing if you have access to it very closely, but the tyranny of distance does add even more stress or complications to the accessibility of it. So that's why I really am passionate about trying to get it here. And I think COVID has highlighted, with both our borders to New South Wales and South Australia being closed, we haven't had access to healthcare. Specialists haven't been able to fly in to provide specialist service in cancer or cardiac service, all of those specialists that come here. So we're at a real risk, and just because where you live, it should not determine your quality of life. So we kind of have, I feel like we have our response at the minute is a bit of a, if I could use a sport analogy, it's a defensive game. So we wait until things go really bad, and then we rely on our amazing emergency department trying to fix it. So imagine the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. I feel if we could be at the top of the cliff and having a more of an offensive game, so being proactive, having preventative treatment, so that we don't have to put the pressure on our ED, because in most cases they're not equipped. And in Scott's case, they have to call the Medivac plane to come from Melbourne. The plane was called for Scott, but he never even made it to the Mildura hospital. He passed away before the plane even got here. So it's a real game of Russian roulette.
Katrina, I can hear passion in your voice, but what I'm really pleased about is I don't see you as a bitter and twisted person, but do you get frustrated when you see government expenditure in some areas and then hear that things can't happen because there's no money available?
Yeah, that's one of my obstacles. But again, I feel like COVID there's a bit of a silver lining. It's really shone a light on being self-sufficient, and I think there's a real opportunity for us to become self-sufficient and move away. I think it might be more at the mind of politicians, who are the ones who are deciding where money goes, that being so city or metro-centric actually doesn't work. And here's an opportunity to truly show people in regional Victoria, in our case, that we do care about you, and we do, we'll walk our talk. We'll invest in infrastructure and services and specialists in your area. We won't use the old money as a problem for why we can't have it there. I've heard of people, big corporates, their CEO is not based in Melbourne. They're based somewhere regionally, and they're using the technology to conduct their business, and the productivity, the contentment in workplaces, because they're happy where they're living, they've got the lifestyle. So I really think that's an opportunity for us to tap into, is showing the benefits of you can be a CEO, live in a place like Mildura, but still access metro, rather than, I think it's always been country people need to access metro. I think COVID might flip it on its head and say, but what about the other way? We live in the country and still access metro, which is what we've done all our life, We'll travel in Broken Hill. Sydney was 1,300 k's away, or more, sorry.
Yeah. This is a story that was open to me when I lived in Keith in South Australia for a while, so far from capital city, and these issues come up. And then we had a guest on our show, David Park, and who was involved in an organisation that raised money within outside of the government circles to put dialysis machines in centres like Ballarat, Bendigo, Shepparton and around Victoria for the exact reason that you're talking about, to make it easier for regional people to access these services that were once only available in Melbourne. Katrina, I'd like to extend an invitation for you to join me on my other radio format on a Thursday, where we might tap into this subject, because there's 1,000 questions running around my head at the moment with what you're doing, and hopefully we'll be in touch. And I'd like to investigate it a bit more with you, because I wouldn't say it's a passion of mine, but it's a frustration of mine, having lived regionally and being concerned about these health issues.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to do that. I think COVID again has just really brought this to the fore, to see how Australia can live better for all Australians wherever you live.
And thanks for not going, Geelong, that's not regional. Katrina, it has been great getting to know you, and trust that will continue happening as we get along. And thanks for joining us on a Saturday morning, and we'll talk soon.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Katrina. All the very best. I'll be in touch.
There she is, Katrina Umback from Mildura, and an incredible story when you hear it explained to you. Just have your world turned upside down at the age of 40.
Yeah,
and when we talk about world being turned upside, we're talking about worlds being turned upside down, not I suddenly realised that my shed had burnt down, or extraordinary.
Or I had to wear a mask to go to the shop to get the milk.
Yeah,
those sorts of terrible impositions to your life.